and welcome to another episode of the Developer Podcast. Today is a very special conversation because I have my colleagues here with me today, and we're going to be talking about a very important conversation that is affecting us presently in our country, in our society, and in our community, which is child labor. We all know that child labor is an issue affecting millions of children worldwide. Yet many of these forms often happen in front of us, in our communities and in our societies, but yet we don't even speak about it. We don't want to come out and say, this is a conversation we should have, or this is something that is affecting us as a community or as a society. And in this conversation, I'm just going to be speaking with my colleagues about some of these cultural norms, about some of the misconceptions, and why it is important for people to speak out and shine light on this issue of child labor. Starting on my right is Ajuri Adoga, and she's our HR manager for Devotalk. On my right again is Emmanuel Asupo. He's our audiovisual and graphics designer. I also have Israel Ulukayode, who is our ICT assistant. And lastly, Mr. Mohammed Suleiman, our admin and procurement officer. So, without taking much of our time, we will dive right into this conversation. So, looking at our society today, looking at our communities today, there is this conception of, you're sending a child to a home, or you're sending your relative or someone that you just want to pay to come to your house and work as a child domestic worker. Now, people in our society don't even see the age limits or the age accepted range for children to work. Some people go as far as employing children under the age of 10, 8, some even 6 to work as child domestic workers in their homes. So my first question would just be to the house. When you hear the phrase child labor, what comes to your mind?
Right? When you hear the word child labor, what comes to your mind? What comes to my mind is a picture of children walking on the street. First, the immediate thing, right? Because that is something as Nigerians we see on a daily basis. You see children on the road running up and down, trying to sell pure water, trying to sell gala in the middle of the express road.
You see that a lot.
So I think that's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear child labor. Now there are many forms and a lot of things that still happens, but that is one of the most common that takes place, right? I don't know if any other person has something to say as regards that.
I would say that when I think of child labor, what comes to mind is poverty, because oftentimes it's a symptom of a lack of resources, probably to further the child's education or to make ends meet, to feed other children within the family unit, or just to support the parents.
True. We have different views on what child labor looks like and seems like. It's not so common in many parts of the world, but we have seen through statistics and facts that this is very prevalent in our country, Nigeria. And it brings me to my second question, which talks about basically where we draw the line on this child domestic work or child labor. What seems to be the line where we say, okay, you bring the child to a home, what are the chores and responsibilities of this child? Are you bringing the child to your home to do basic normal domestic chores, or are you bringing the child to your home to work in your business space, making the child not go to school, leaving the child probably not able to play, the child is always working, you're taking them to your business places and taking education, play, and the right to a childhood away from them. So I just want to know, where do you think that it draws the line? Where do you think that exploitation comes in? Where do you think exploitation comes in into this child labor? Because I mean, we are all adults now, but at what point in our lives we worked as we're able to do chores in our home?
Yeah.
Your mom will call you, okay, Israel, go and sweep the parlor. Ajiri, go and fetch water for me to bath. But at what point now do we see that this is exploitation? Because many people might see it as, I know be to go send person. Is it not to send somebody? That is not me being exploitative. This is me just giving the child a domestic chore. But where do we draw the line? Where do we say, okay, no, this is exploitation. This is not domestic work again? Because, I mean, we've seen on social media where a child was literally burnt with rubbers on their body. We do not know really what the backstory was about. But seeing that the child went through such trauma and such, I don't know what to call it, physical touch or melted down on that child was just a lot. So where do we draw the line? This is exploitation. This is normal house chores. Because like I said, at one point in our lives, we had to do domestic chores at home. So where do we say, no, this is exploitation and a child shouldn't be involved in such a labor?
Okay.
So what do we think?
So concerning that, I want to first bring our minds to something which you had said, and which is, I feel, is the key part of the reason behind all this. You see, we all did chores as kids, but we're attached certain rights and certain opportunities just because we're children of our parents. And every child, legally, according to the Geneva World Agreement, has their fundamental human rights, which is right to education and all that. And now, when a child comes into your home, I think it's a mindset problem that first of all causes this, where you remove that child from seeing that child as your own child. And so because of that, the privileges that your child has, that child does not have. Therefore, certain things like education, freedom of movement, because if your child was working, even if your child was a hyperactive child, working, you would tell your own child, rest. But because you do not see this child as your child, you tend to, I brought you here. So you are seeing that child as a staff
as a worker. You're supposed to do this at this point in time.
Yes, and I would also love to use the opportunity to also point out that social issue, because it is a social issue where in this part of the world, staff are seen as to be less than human beings. Most employers see their employees or people who they are paying as less than them, so they do not attach a human dignity to them. Because if I have my own child, no matter what happens, I would not want to put my child in a position where my child will not have the privileges to live a better life. But we see cases where your children are going to school, but the child who you brought into your house does not have access to education. Your children sleep in comfortable beds, but the child who you brought to your house does not
sleeping on the floor in the cold.
The child feels less than a human being, and this is somebody else's child. And so the question is, it becomes exploitation when that child does not have basic access to things that will make the child also feel like part of the family, right? Because I feel like if I'm taking you out of your family, I shouldn't make you feel less than a human being. But most of these children, I was reading on Twitter that most of these female children don't even have access to good menstrual health, menstrual hygiene, and they don't even buy them pads. And these are children that you brought to stay with them. But because you don't see them as your children, you don't attach that dignity and respect to them. And I think that when you lose that dignity and respect towards that child, that becomes exploitation. Because whatever happens there, you do not see that child as yours. And so that responsibility, because that responsibility is not yours, you will not care. You care less about whatever happens to that child.
That's a very valid point. Because, I mean, if you see a certain child as yours, there is no how you would want to melt down such inhuman treatment on such a child. Even if the child is as old as 10 years old or 15 years old, there's no form of abuse or whatever you would want to melt down on such a child that you took from someone's home and said, okay, I want to take you into my home. Okay, maybe you agree, the family agree that, okay, take my child. Because obviously we see this in many communities. They willingly give out their children to people in the city to train their children and work as domestic staffs to them. And at the end of the day, when they come to the city, it is not what they promise them that they end up doing in the city. So that's a very, very valid point. If you have a child and you're an employer or an employee of a child, you should treat that child the way you treat your own child. So I don't know if anybody has anything to say.
Well,
you know, for me, there are some parents that are just wicked. Even what they do to other child, they do it to their child. Because while growing up, we've seen things like that. Maybe, for example, their child, not somebody's child that is with them, their child might maybe do something wrong. Some will go as far as stealing meat from the pot, and you see their mom will beat them, not just beat them. I've seen where they plug heater, a woman plug heater and was using it to burn her own child. So I think it's a thing that it's more like a follow like I don't know. Some parents are just wicked like that.
Say it's follow come.
So I'll just say that's a natural thing. So for them, they might think they want to like
discipline their
child or correct the
by melting down such.
Yeah, maybe the child will not do such.
And then when they see that scar, they will remember not to go and do that thing again.
But in most cases, you still see that child going back to do something even worse than that. So for me, I would say inflicting such punishment on that child does not solve the problem.
I think we should also point out that aspect that we are talking in the context of Nigeria, and we are trying to outline the line between child labor and a child being responsible in the average home, right? But pointing that out, we have to also put factors into play, like what can I tell this child to do? What are some things that this child is not meant to do? Right? And the first thing we have to acknowledge is that every child deserves a childhood. They deserve to be a child.
Right to play.
That is it.
Right to school. Right to sleep.
Just let children be children.
Let children be children.
Be it your child or another
person's child.
That is it. So now, but we have to be specific. We have to look at the context-wise. You take for example a 3-year-old to go and carry like 2 heavy buckets of water, or sending him to fry something that is very hot that could burn.
But you can't even send a 3-year-old.
Like, sorry.
Send a 3-year-old. I mean, okay, let's say from 9.
Should we say 9?
We have children who are 9 and 7.
I think in such cases, the question lies: should you have children when you are not responsible enough to take care of children? Because if I have a 9-year-old child, I don't see my 9-year-old child leaving my house to go and live with another person. If it is Gary, we'll soak it together. That is where
the root cause is coming.
That is true.
So why do people even send their children in the first place to homes to go and work?
I think, in my opinion, it is laziness. I've always said this thing: parenting is hard work. And if you have ever been around young parents, you know that it takes a lot of intentionality and commitment to actually raise a child. But you see, because of laziness, I say if you can allow your child to go to a young child if you can like let go of your child, the responsibility of owning that child to another person, you're a lazy parent. It just shows that because I feel like with the amount of information we have now, childbirth should not be something that just happens. You should understand that it's a grave responsibility, right? It comes with big responsibility to bring another person into this world, and that responsibility is solely yours because it is something you did. It is you that brought about that child, and then handing over that responsibility. Let's say, for example, this laptop costs 120,000, for example, and it is mine, and I just give it to you. You did not buy it. You will not value it as much as I value it. And for me to even give you that laptop shows that I have no value for it, because I do not know how you're going to take care of it. But it costs me money, right? And it is the same thing with children. If you understand that bringing a child into the world is a responsibility on its own, you wouldn't want to take it for granted by giving to another person.
I'm sorry to cut you short. We are talking about realities now in Nigeria we are facing. So, for example, imagine communities where, it's not a new topic anymore, where bandits raid communities, right? Leaving them with little or nothing, burning their homes, making them displaced persons.
Yeah,
Do you understand? They even have to move from their own homes, running to places that they don't even know they are left from their right or know how they will survive tomorrow.
And they
So,
become beggars.
for example, I come to those kind of communities and I say, okay, mommy, I want to take your child to Lagos or to Abuja. They see it as you taking burden off them because they know that at least, for example, they have 5 kids. You've taken 1 mouth to feed away from them. And it's not that they are lazy. Do you understand? It's just that some people face certain circumstances that make them want to even let go of their children. No parent or no mother who birthed a child would want to see their child leave her arms just because you said you want to give that child a better life. But because she knows that she cannot cater for that child, at that point in time, she now gives you that child because you have come to promise them that, okay, I will give this child a better life. And she has said that, okay, now that I can't give this child the better life that he or she deserves, you can take this child and like I said, most of the time, that is not the case. The children end up going there and then they are being maltreated, even sent to the streets to go and work.
That brings about the logical question. If I came to you and said I want to take your child, what is the guarantee that that child is having a better life simply because you came and promised me that?
Well, the parent obviously sees that their current living condition is not to write home about, and that the person they are handing their child over to has a better living condition. You see somebody in the city who has cars, who is able to cater for themselves, and you think, okay, this my cousin or my brother or my niece will treat my child better, or my friend will be able to cater for their school, and all of those things that all my child needs to do is just to go there and assist them in 1 or 2 things. That's the belief, and apparently looking at it straightforwardly, the child will have a better, like that provides more opportunity for the child. He has access to city, jobs, networking, and all of those things.
At least then, but okay, I think I get it. But what I'm trying to say is, it brings to eye the reality of the fact that the strong will always feed on the vulnerable. I think it is societal norm, and no matter how hard we try, I think it's something that's always going to happen because when they said, I've read somewhere that when someone is hungry, at that point, anything is nothing, and so a hungry man will always forsake principles, right? And even in the Bible, I mean, look at what happened with Jacob and Esau.
But that's I don't want to take your own perspective away from you. That's the way you see why someone would want to let their children go or wouldn't want to let their children go. I see you, I hear that perspective, your perspective. Let's hear from Mohammed.
Okay, do you know that there are some parents that will reach out to people they feel are better than them to, like, okay, to come and take their child so that their child can be staying with them. It's not all the time that you see the rich men going to the villages to talk to people to give them their child. So some people are willingly ready to, like, okay, give their child. Okay, I have a brother in the city, he's okay and he can fend for himself and also his children, so my child will not be a problem. So they will call hello, please, is your child, you will be like, which of your child? And they'll be like, my daughter or my son, he's not going to school, I don't know if you can assist him or if you can assist her, so I would like him or her to come and stay with you so that he can be running errands for you, then he will have access, he or she will have access to education. So that's what most people do. So they feel like, okay, in Nigeria, we feel like if a child does not go to school at that early stage, he will not make it in life. So that's what, no, it's true. That's what
education is very, very key.
Yes, we know education is very, very key, but just because I don't have right now and I cannot send my child to school right now, I feel maybe I have failed myself, I've failed the child, and because I don't want to fail the child now, I want to take him or her to somebody that I feel can send him or her to school. And anything he or she faces there, she have
Shall just end up with your certificate.
exactly
and go to
because
school.
you see
Is that
sometimes
necessarily bad? Like
no, it's not bad because sometimes you see the child coming to complain to the parent that oh these people are maltreating me, but the father or the mom will not have a say. They'll be like just manage. It's a matter of time and.
That still points back to lazy parenting because if I
No,
give
you
birth to
cannot
a
say lazy
child,
parent. No, you cannot
sorry,
call it lazy parent.
Sorry, let's
So let me butt in here.
Okay.
First and foremost, I think there's a focus on maybe parents have. He is giving us a perspective where maybe the parent still has a choice to keep the child. But I would like to point us to our current economic situation and the fact that there are a lot of people who simply cannot feed.
True.
It's not a question of maybe there's no meat in their
Exactly.
food.
Yeah.
It's a question of there's no rice, and if there's rice, there's
There's
no
nothing to
Oil.
cook it
no
with.
no firewood, or there's no oil, or there's
There's
so
no house sometimes.
people are in very dire straits. So another aspect of this child labor that we sort of ignore sometimes is begging. In the north here, we know we're more familiar with almajiris. Now, I did a project in Kaduna State, and one particular aspect of the project activity was a nutrition outreach. And during that program, we encountered a woman who had severe acute malnutrition and her child. I've never seen it before. I've only watched documentaries, and you see terribly hungry children with the bones showing and all of that. So it sort of exposed me to a reality that I had never known to be true. Okay, we see in other African countries children are hungry, but seeing it at close range, I began to understand the desperation and then the difficult choices people have to make, because now most of the societies, they don't really adopt things like birth control and so on. And so that's just one child that I saw. We don't know the situation of the remaining children.
Exactly.
So the parents eventually will say, okay, we can't feed you, go out and beg. At least they will see food. And perhaps if they get money, they will be able to bring back for the parents. So in this case, the case of the severe acute malnutrition, the mother had a mental disability. And so now also complicated with the fact that she was also severely malnourished. And so unfortunately, just a few months after we found the mother and the child, we were able to refer them to the Ministry of Health in Kaduna State, but the child didn't survive. So we don't know the state of the children. Although the husband was there, but obviously not able to cater to the family at that time, or circumstances, they lose their jobs, or they do something that is very menial. So they just can't make ends meet, no matter how you want to look at it. So there are people who just have no choice. Remember that financial stability, it brings choice. Some people don't have a choice. There's an ideal, yes, but even their own upbringing might be similar. So they don't know any better. So this is where you now bring in a bit about education.
As a solution.
How do you access these people? Because one way to maybe avoid such a thing is that, okay, maybe birth control still boils down to education. How do you reach to that fabric of society? Because some of them, it's intertwined with some religious beliefs.
Yeah.
So it's not just a social issue, we have religious as well. What's the perception of a child? Because in the society, I think Emmanuel already pointed out that our society is an oppressive one, and it's not going to change anytime soon. So the husband oppresses the wife oppresses the child. So by extension, the domestic help that we will say is a child in such a circumstance. So it's like a chain that has to break at some point, because a child that is going through that has two options: either to also grow and behave like that, or they maybe swear that they will never have their own child pass through the same situation, which is where they now work hard to ensure that no matter how difficult life gets, they are not going to hand over their child to anybody to take care of.
Because right now, even on social media will make you scared enough not to even let your child go to another person's home.
Exactly. And I think
What children are going through in homes will not even let you want to let go of your child to go and stay in anybody's home.
And I think just to add to what she's saying, there's something that I feel like we are an elephant in the room we're ignoring, which is um, policies, right? Because we live in a place where we have a governmental institution that handles administration. What are the policies that are being set? Because most times when you hear of interventions, sensitizations, they are done by non-governmental organizations. And for a society that is largely democratic and ruled by an administrative government, it is I feel like it is improper that there are policies on paper, right, to do this. There are funds and all that. But how are they implemented? How are they monitored? How are they evaluated? Because similar to Ajiri's experience, I was in Kano 2 years ago, and I saw people who, you'd see them, forget the fact that they're impoverished, most of them have disabilities, they are people with special needs, and then they don't have access, so they don't live like human beings. I mean, it's very, very prevalent around us. You see people who have polio, just because they have polio and they are crippled, they are automatically pushed to begging because they don't have the normal access to normal human beings simply because of the disability. So what role does the government play? What policies are in place and are properly monitored and evaluated to ensure that those people at least are being able to have that access, right? Because if we talk about rights, we also talk about fundamental human rights. And when the government does not, as an institution, does not play that part, it is also an abuse to the fundamental human rights of these people, because before anything, they are human. I feel like that's also another angle to look at it from.
Very amazing, very amazing. So we're speaking about education, we're speaking about awareness. Now, what should we look out for, or we see children in our communities? What are the signs we're supposed to look out for in our communities to say, okay, this child, I'm saying this child is looking a little bit malnourished, I'm saying this child a little bit bruised than a child is supposed to be bruised. What do you think that we can do as people in societies, or as people who are to an extent aware that this thing is actually happening in our communities? What signs do you think that we should look out for in children who you feel like are going through child labor? Like, most of these things are hidden in plain sight. Most of these employers will not even want the children to come outside, so that people will not see that, oh, I'm maltreating this child, or this child has a bruise that is not supposed to be on a child's body. So how do we look out for these children? How do we pay attention to such little details to make sure that, okay, this does not persist in our society? Because believe it or not, it's very persistent. It's the ones we see on social media that we see. What about the ones that we don't even see? I mean, we're just looking at a video that a child was beaten to death. What of the ones that we don't even see? So these things are mostly hidden in plain sight. So what are those signs that you think that we should look out for, that people listening now should look out for in a child, and not just look away and say, oh, it's not my business, I don't have to speak on this, I don't have to take responsibility for this, the child is not in my house. So whoever is taking care of this child, or whoever is this child guardian, is the person's sole responsibility to do whatever they wish to the child. So how would you talk to people listening? How would you create awareness to people listening that don't even know that, oh, this thing actually persists in our society? What should they look out for in their communities?
Okay, for me, I would say they should make it their business.
Definitely.
Because when you have this I don't care attitude, you won't know what is happening around you. So if you can start with, let's say, your neighbors, no matter how good you are living, you must surely have a neighbor. So if you can start by, like, let's say when your neighbor, not just when they have a house help or an external person doing house chores for them, even their own child, they can be maltreating their own child. So if you can pay attention to them, then be able to like figure out if they are maltreating their children or not. I think that's what I have to say.
Well, also building on what Muhammad said, you see, if you study the pattern, there's been a very big generational gap, and we have slowly turned into an individual society, an individualistic society rather. I mean, I can remember clearly growing up, if you are doing something wrong as a child, your neighbor can call you and even to some other extent scold you, don't do this again, because a child was raised by the village, you know. But we live in places where everyone is so individualistic, like, oh, please do what you want, or do you, it's your child.
We've gone from you don't raise a child alone.
Yes,
it's a community that we've gone from that to everybody on your own.
Do you understand? And due to that, it has now created an ideology that as long as it doesn't affect me, I'm fine, right? And I feel like that's the first place. There's supposed to be a desensitization desensitization towards that, where people can now understand that it is your responsibility because you are present in this community, right? If you take this thing as your responsibility, you'll be able to do the next thing, which is I'm about to talk, which is reporting, right? Now there are certain signs. I read an article on child psychology, and they said one of the things that children are supposed to be expressive. But when you see a child who is more coiled up, not expressive, that's a sign that that child might be going through some form of abuse. It might not even be physical, emotionally, or sexually. A child who is supposed to be speaking up loud, happy, is suddenly so quiet, reserved, and they're like, he's just a quiet child. Well, he could be a quiet child, but you still need to check. What's up with you? How are you doing? Right? And if you notice, you see that there's some deep-seated issue that might make that child, that reserved child, that is maybe because of always being beaten, he's scared of saying his thoughts because he knows that it will be shut down, right? And you can trace those little patterns. And then what do you now do? Reporting. Fortunately, at DevAtop, there is a platform, Talker, right? You can also use to report things like this. So we should not just notice, but we should also put ourselves in a position of whistleblowers, where we see this happen and we are able to say, oh, this is happening, we're reporting this case. See, we observe the signs. When we see little signs of a child that is being redrawn, we report, we investigate, and we report.
True. So very quickly, in just a minute or two, like you said, we have a platform to talk about. I just want you to give like a 1 or 2 minutes reason why this app should be leveraged in reporting cases of child labor in our society.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that question. The first thing we need to realize is we live in a digital age. The world is going digital. In fact, it's not going, the world is digital. And we have to leverage on the tools and platforms available. Identifying and seeing those problems is the first, but there needs to be a platform where you can make those reports, where those reports can be tracked, where those reports can be followed up. And even aside that, there are courses, things that you have to take to be able to know how to handle those kind of situations, and several other things that involves that particular situation. The Talkam app has several features on it. The first feature is the report abuse feature, where you can report live incidents taking place. You can upload pictures, you can upload videos, and you can make detailed reports of what is happening. Take, for example, electoral violence and things like that, things that might relate to that circumstance. On the Talkam app, there is room for you to learn. And there is also a social media platform on the Talkam app where we can come and discuss vital topics like this, because we know that our voices matter. So those are some of the things we could do. Now, remember that digital tools matter, right? And remain on the Talkam. Constantly check the Talkam app, their updates, and several things that Talkam and DevAtop usually places on the platform to ensure that we are afloat. Because it's not just something you do in one day. There are trends, there are things that change. So you have to remain updated. You have to remain on the flow. And thereby, you have to ensure that you are up to date on using the Talkam app. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your views, your comments, and your suggestions. Today's topic was a very important one and insightful one, saying that it is centered around child labor. And as we have discussed today, child labor is always obvious, and exploitation is often hidden in plain sight in our societies. So my last words would be, every child out there is your business. Do not look at any child as less of a child, or the child is in a home, they can do whatever with the child. Please, let's look out for every single child out there. Every single child is yours, even if you didn't birth them, even if they are not your family member. Every child is a child. And we should let children grow. We should let children have the right to their childhood. Once again, thank you everyone for your valued contributions to this. Until we come your way again, have a wonderful day. And if you see talk.